Hello, and welcome back to the Southwestern Herbal Academy podcast. Today, we are talking about one of the most familiar herbs in the world, and also one of the easiest to underestimate, and that is chamomile. Most people know chamomile as a bedtime tea. They think of it as something soft, mild, and simple, something you drink when you want to relax a little before bed. And while that is certainly one of its uses, chamomile is far more valuable than that simple image suggests. Chamomile is one of those herbs that teaches us a very important lesson about herbal medicine as a whole, and that is this: gentle does not mean weak. In fact, some of the most useful herbs are not the strongest or the most dramatic. They're the ones that work steadily, consistently, and in a way that the body can receive well over time. Chamomile is one of those herbs. It is calming without being harsh. It is soothing without being forceful. It supports several body systems at the same time. And for many people, it is exactly the kind of herb that fits beautifully into everyday life. So today, I want to talk about why chamomile matters, what it actually does, why it is more useful than people often realize, and how you can start working with it in a practical way. Because if you're learning herbal medicine, chamomile is one of those herbs that deserves a lot more respect than it usually gets. When we first begin learning about herbs, it's easy to be drawn toward the ones that sound the most impressive, the strongest herbs, the more exotic herbs, the ones that seem to promise big results. And yet, very often, the herbs that become the most important in real life are the simple ones you actually use over and over again. Chamomile falls into that category. It's widely available. It's generally affordable, it's easy to prepare, it's easy to tolerate, and it addresses some of the most common issues people deal with every day, especially stress, digestive tension, restlessness, and low-level inflammation. That matters. Because most people are not dealing with one huge dramatic health event every day, they're dealing with the slow wear and tear of modern life. They're dealing with nervous tension, poor sleep, tight shoulders, stomach discomfort, irritation, feeling worn down, feeling a little overstimulated, and a little under-rested at the same time. And that is where chamomile can really shine. Chamomile is often described as a nervine, meaning it supports the nervous system. And this is probably its most well-known role. But even here, it helps to be more specific. Chamomile is not usually the kind of herb that knocks a person out. It is not typically a heavy sedative. Instead, chamomile helps take the edge off. It softens tension. It helps the body begin to let go. That's a very different thing. For many people, and especially in today's world, the problem is not that they need to be flattened into sleep. The problem is that they are carrying too much tension into the evening. Their body is technically tired, but their mind is still spinning. Their muscles are still tight. Their digestion is still unsettled. Their whole system is still a little activated. Chamomile helps ease that state. It helps create the conditions for rest. And that makes it useful not only at bedtime, but at other times of the day as well. A person does not have to wait until night to benefit from chamomile. Sometimes a cup in the late afternoon is exactly what helps transition out of a tense day. Sometimes a cup after a stressful meal is more useful than a cup before bed. Sometimes it is the regular daily use that makes the real difference, not a single cup taken only when things have already gotten bad. This is one of the things I really want people to understand about herbal medicine. Herbs are not always dramatic. They are often relational. They work best when you get to know them, use them consistently, and allow them to support the body over time. Chamomile is a wonderful example of that. Another one of chamomile's major strengths is the digestive system. In fact, I would say digestion is one of the areas where chamomile deserves much more attention than it usually gets. People often reach for peppermint or ginger first when they think about digestion, and those herbs certainly have their place. But chamomile is incredibly valuable, especially when digestion is connected to tension, irritation, or nervous system overload. And that is very common. A lot of digestive discomfort is not just about food. It is about the state the body is in when food is eaten and processed. People eat while stressed. They eat while distracted. They eat too fast. They go from one task to the next without ever settling. And then they wonder why they feel bloated, crampy, tight, or uncomfortable afterward. Chamomile can help here because it does more than one thing at once. It helps relax the nervous system, and that in turn supports digestion. It also has soothing properties for the digestive tract itself. It can be helpful when there is mild cramping, irritation, bloating, or that sense that the stomach just does not feel settled. This is one reason chamomile is such a classic herb. It is not narrowly useful. It works across systems in a way that makes sense. The nervous system and digestion are deeply connected. Anyone who has ever gotten a stomachache from stress already knows that. Anyone who has ever felt their digestion shut down when anxious knows that too. Chamomile meets the body right in that overlap. That's why it can be such a good herb for people who carry stress in their stomach, or who notice that their digestion gets worse when life gets busy, tense, or emotionally heavy. Chamomile is also known for its anti-inflammatory and soothing properties. Again, I do not want to overstate it as if it is some dramatic cure-all. It is not that. But it is a supportive herb that can help calm irritation, and that becomes meaningful when used consistently. A lot of modern discomfort is not extreme. It is low level and chronic. A little irritation here, a little tension there, a body that feels just slightly inflamed, slightly tight, and slightly reactive. Chamomile fits beautifully into that kind of picture because it's not trying to overpower the body. It is helping reduce friction. That is a phrase I really like for chamomile. It reduces friction. It softens rough edges. It helps things settle. It creates a little more ease where there was irritation, tension, or reactivity before. And in the body, that can go a long way. It's also worth talking about why chamomile is so often called gentle. Sometimes people hear the word gentle and assume it means unimpressive. But in herbal medicine, gentle can be one of the best qualities an herb can have. A gentle herb is often one that can be used regularly. It is one the body tends to welcome. It is one that can support children, sensitive people, older adults, or those who do not do well with stronger plants. Gentleness can mean safety. It can mean accessibility. It can mean you can build a real relationship with the herb because it fits easily into daily life. Chamomile is a very approachable herb. For a beginner, that matters. A lot of people feel overwhelmed when they start learning herbal medicine. There are so many herbs, so many preparations, so many opinions, and so much information that people can end up doing nothing at all. Chamomile is one of those herbs that cuts through that overwhelm. You can start with chamomile. You can make a tea. You can drink it and observe how you feel. You can try it in the evening for a week. You can try it after meals. You can pay attention to whether your stomach feels more settled, whether your body relaxes more easily, whether your sleep improves a bit, whether your overall tension seems to come down. That kind of direct experience is how people really begin learning herbs, not by memorizing endless lists, but by working with one herb at a time and seeing what it actually does. Now, when it comes to using chamomile, preparation matters. A weak cup of tea made from an old tea bag that was dipped in hot water for 30 seconds is not going to tell you much. If someone says chamomile does nothing for them, sometimes what they really mean is that they have never truly used it in a meaningful way. A proper chamomile tea should be made with enough herb to matter, and it should be steeped long enough to extract the constituents well. Give it time. Let it sit covered so those volatile compounds stay in the cup instead of drifting off with the steam. Drink it warm. Pay attention to the effect. It is often the simple details that make the difference between herbs do nothing and, oh, I can actually feel this. Chamomile can also be used as a tincture, and that can be very practical for people who do not want to make tea every day. Tinctures can be especially useful for convenience, travel, or people who need something simple and quick. But for many folks, tea is part of the medicine. The warmth, the pause, the act of sitting down with it, all of that contributes something, especially when we're talking about an herb that works so beautifully with tension and stress. The ritual of slowing down enough to drink the tea can be part of why it works so well. That does not mean tinctures are less valuable. It just means the form can matter depending on the person and the situation. Chamomile can also be used externally in certain situations. Because it is soothing, it can be helpful in washes, compresses, or other gentle external preparations for irritated skin. Again, we are not talking about a dramatic intervention. We are talking about an herb that calms and comforts. And that quality can be useful on the outside of the body too. What I especially appreciate about chamomile is that it teaches a bigger lesson about health. It reminds us that not every useful remedy has to be intense. Not every helpful change has to be dramatic. Sometimes what the body most needs is not more force. Sometimes it needs support. Sometimes it needs softness. Sometimes it needs repetition and consistency instead of a big one-time event. That is a very hard lesson for modern culture to absorb because we are so conditioned to look for fast, strong, immediate results. But a lot of healing is not like that. A lot of healing comes from things that seem small at first. A daily cup of tea, a little less tension, a little better digestion, a little more ease at bedtime. Over time, those things become significant. Chamomile is a humble herb, but humble herbs are often the ones that people actually build a life with. And I think that is one reason it still matters so much today. We live in a very overstimulated world. People are rushing, multitasking, scrolling, worrying, reacting, and staying keyed up far longer than the body was designed to handle. And that state shows up everywhere. It shows up in poor sleep. It shows up in digestive discomfort. It shows up in irritability. It shows up in tension headaches, shallow breathing, and feeling unable to fully settle. Chamomile belongs in that conversation, not because it will solve everything, but because it supports the body in one of the most needed directions today, which is toward calm, toward softness, toward settling. And sometimes that is exactly where health begins. If you're brand new to chamomile, I would encourage you to approach it simply. Do not overcomplicate it. Try using it regularly for a week or two. Drink it in the evening, or drink it after meals if digestion is where you need support. Notice what shifts. Notice not only whether you feel sleepy, but whether you feel easier in your body. Notice whether your stomach feels less tight. Notice whether you unwind a little faster. Notice whether the body begins to trust that it can let go. That's the kind of change gentle herbs often create. And if you already know chamomile as just a sleepy time tea, maybe this is your invitation to look at it again. Look at it as a digestive herb. Look at it as a nervous system herb. Look at it as an herb for irritation, tension, and overstimulation. Look at it as a steady companion instead of a one-note tea, because it's much more than people often think. Chamomile may not be flashy, but it is deeply useful. It may not be dramatic, but it is dependable. And sometimes the herbs that matter most are exactly the ones that quietly keep showing up for the everyday things that shape how we feel. So yes, chamomile really is a gentle healer. And in a world this tense, that gentleness is not a weakness. It's a gift. Thank you for being here with me today. If you're just getting started with herbal medicine and want a simple, practical place to begin, I've put together the Herbal Foundation Starter Guide. It's designed to help you understand the basics without feeling overwhelmed, and to help you begin using herbs in a way that is grounded and approachable. You can find that on my website. And until next time, start simple, stay consistent, and pay attention to what your body is telling you. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.